Hey guys, awesome. I made it out of the conference. It went really well. Actually, better than I expected. But no, it actually went really well. I wasn't as nervous as I usually am. I didn't forget where I was. I didn't black out or anything. I didn't cry. I didn't poop my pants. It went really well. There was over 300 people in attendance, and it was very informative. And so I actually had a lot of feedback from you guys asking me if I could probably do this video online. But the thing is that this presentation was an hour long. So I'm going to try as much as I can to condense this as much as possible. But it's a lot of information, and as it is, an hour was already condensed. So I'm going to try my best as I can so I don't lose you guys, put you guys to sleep. And so here we go. Let's talk a little bit about CBD. So very condensed, light speed version of the history of cannabis. Where exactly did it come from? We really don't know. I mean, we've seen this stuff all over the place, but we kind of have seen that it's kind of originated somewhere in Europe, maybe 6 million years ago. We have found some cannabis seeds in graves in China and Siberia. They actually had a high amount of THC, and so that kind of tells us that these people were using it either for recreational or for ritual purposes, because cannabis in the wild doesn't really exist in those amounts of THC. So we kind of know what they were using it for. So for 6 million years, we were completely
high and wasted.
Nah, just kidding. But let's move over to the 1800s. That was when the first paper was actually presented by Dr. O'Shaughnessy, and he was actually doing clinical trials on rats. Once he established that that was actually safe to use, he started trying it on his patients, and he saw that there was a lot of medicinal use for specifically pain in the stomach. At that time, cholera was very common, and one of the symptoms of cholera is, a lot of pain in the stomach. And so he started using it for that and got a lot of great effects from it. And so for the 1800s, it was widely used for this, and so for 1800s all the way to the Great Depression, what exactly happened, right? It was so popular, the Great Depression. That's exactly what happened. At that time there was a lot of competition for jobs because there was no jobs to be had. People were basically fending off and just trying to do their best they could to survive on a daily basis. And at that time also there was a lot of immigration coming from Mexico specifically, and Mexican immigrants were also using cannabis, but they were smoking it. And this was a new way that was introduced to be able to use cannabis. And at that time, because of the job issue, there was a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment, and a lot of people felt like they were competing with jobs with the immigrants. And two people specifically were known to take advantage of this situation. So who are these two people that were accredited with pretty much basically changing the whole American point of view of cannabis? William Randolph Hearst was one of them. He was a businessman, and hemp was actually a direct competitor to his business. The other one was Harry Jacob Anslinger, and he was actually part of the U.S. Treasury Department Federal Bureau of Narcotics, which after a lot of different transitions, it eventually became the DEA. So both of these guys saw a really good way to, one was to save his job, and then the other one was basically to make more money, or at least get rid of a competitor. And then these two guys together basically started spewing a lot of propaganda to basically link cannabis to immigrants, and they started emphasizing the word marijuana instead of using cannabis because marijuana sounded more ethnic, more immigrants, more exotic sounding. And because of that, people that were using cannabis by smoking, they thought that smoking was bad, which was the marijuana, and the tinctures were good because the tinctures were labeled cannabis. And because of this, these two guys basically changed with all the proper propaganda that they spewed. They basically changed Americans' view of cannabis, and all of a sudden, this popular medication all of a sudden became an evil plant. So all of this led to so many different laws, and I'm not going to cover all the laws because there's just so many. But the important one, of course, is the Marijuana Act of 1937, which basically made marijuana illegal. Although it wasn't illegal completely, they put a huge tax on it, which made it almost impossible for doctors and pharmacists to have the plant and to prescribe it and dispense it. The tax was just unbearable that it just pretty much made cannabis illegal. Then we come to the 1970s with the Controlled Substance Act, which pretty much scheduled all the drugs into different categories. And it pretty much, it scheduled marijuana as a class 1, which is still is to today, which means that it has high likelihood of abuse and no medicinal purpose, which we all know is. Since then, there's been many states that have actually legalized it for either recreational use, for medicinal use. Some of them have decriminalized it, which means that it's still illegal, but the fines are very small, almost negligible. And today, there's about 23 states and Washington, D.C. that have legalized marijuana in one way or another, but it yet still remains to be federally illegal. But we have to differentiate hemp between marijuana, and so that's what we're going to talk about next. So you're going to hear tons of different terms out there. In the beginning, I was super confused too. What in the world is hemp? What in the world is THC? Nobody knows. No, just kidding. There's actually one thing that differentiates both of them, and that's the amount of THC in there. So what exactly is THC? THC is the part of the plant that actually gets you high. Joey's probably going to pull a little thing here. Hopefully, we have the money for or the budget for it. He's going to put a little graph in here showing you a little bit about the differences. But really, the big difference between hemp and marijuana is the amount of THC. They're both cannabis, okay? They're both cannabis. They're not different. They're the same. The difference is hemp has less than 0.3% THC and marijuana has more than 0.3 THC. That is the very important number. Anything less than 0.3 is hemp and it's legal. Anything over that, it's illegal. 0.4, illegal. 0.5, illegal. 0.2, legal. So in 2018, President Trump signed the Federal Hemp Act, Farm Act, and what that did actually, it removed hemp from Schedule 1 status. It basically meant hemp legal. So my colleague here, Joey, reminded me to let you guys know to make sure that you check your state laws because every state is different. So again, for our purpose here in this video, anything less than 0.3% is legal. But again, remember, this is for Texas. So if you live in Texas, awesome. Actually, if you live in Colorado, probably even better. So how exactly is this stuff grown? I'm not going to teach you any of that here because I don't want to get sued. I also don't want you to go Breaking Bad all of a sudden. So, by the way, great show. Cultivation, there really is not a lot of difference between the hemp plant and the marijuana plant, but they are grown differently. And the reason is because in marijuana, you want high amounts of THC. So because of that, you want to make sure that you check temperature, soil, nutrients, all that's very important. And so anything can really mess up the amount of THC in the plant. And so growing marijuana is, I don't want to say it's much harder, but more specific because people want specific amounts of THC in it. Now, hemp on the other side, what you want is you want a lot of it. You want to make sure that you use this stuff. And so because of that, it doesn't require as much, and some people will tell me, I'm probably going to get a lot of dislikes because of this, but really hemp is it's not that hard to grow. What you want is yield. You want a lot of it. And because of that, it's kind of easy to grow. Now you have this plant here, right? How exactly do we put this plant into medicine? There are many different ways. With pharmaceuticals, it's done all the time. There's things called solvents. So basically what we want to do is find a solvent that is able to remove the good parts of the plant out to be able to put into production and to be able to use it. There are different solvents that have been used for many centuries. A lot of them are natural solvents. Some of them are not. Most of the time, they use CO2 extraction. CO2 extraction is by far, and at least in my opinion, the best and most safest way to use it because it doesn't use any solvents. Some people will use alcohol, butane, propane. I mean, there's different ways to do it. But with CO2, there is no solvent. And CO2, again, this is carbon dioxide, so the stuff that you guys breathe out all the time, and it's causing all this pollution and global warming. Climate change. Because of this, it's much safer to use because at the end, you do not have any residual solvents. And not only is it more safe, it yields more product. And because of the fact that you can change the temperature and the pressure of the CO2, you can get different derivatives, different versions of the same thing. You can have higher CBD, less CBD, more terpenes, less terpenes. And we'll talk about all this about this a little bit later in the video. Because CO2, that you can really tailor your product, there's different products out there. I'm going to talk mostly about the sublingual oils because that's what we most commonly see out there. That's what's most sold. That's what most people are pushing. And they're usually called these CBD tinctures, even though they contain 0 to no alcohol. So the word tincture is kind of misleading since they don't use alcohol as a solvent. And also the final product does not have alcohol. But because tincture has always been used in, for medicinal liquids, the word kind of just stuck, and now they always use CBD tinctures. But because of, like I said, because CO2 is you can really change the amount of pressure and temperatures, you can get different products. And what you'll see out there is pretty much 3 different things. It's either full spectrum, broad spectrum, or isolates, CBD isolates. So what's the big difference? Let's start from the top. Full spectrum, that basically has every cannabinoid in the plant. That's CBN, CBC, CBG, CBD, THC, and terpenes. Now, important in there, it has THC. So again, you need to be careful that it make sure it has less than 0.3%. That's the full spectrum. It has most of the parts of the plant in it. A lot of people like that because they believe in the entourage effect, which basically means that all these chemicals together are working in unison to give you better homeostasis in your body. And so they have a synergistic effect. So that's the full spectrum. It has everything in the plant. Then there's broad spectrum, which is exactly the same as the full spectrum, but they remove the THC. So you have the same thing, all the terpenes, you still have the entourage effect, but you have no THC, so you don't have to really worry about the THC part. Then you have CBD isolates, which basically means they remove everything from the plant. The only thing that they'll keep in the bottle is just the CBD. That's it. So in the isolates, you're only getting the CBD. So again, to recap, full spectrum, you have everything in your final product, the CBD and THC. In the broad spectrum, you only have your CBD, no THC, and all the other parts of the plant. And in the CBD isolates, you only have CBD. That's it, just CBD. So what the is a terpene? Those are actually compounds found in natural plants and floral leaves, and it gives the plant its natural scent. These are actually oils that are secreted by the plant, and they have a lot of medicinal properties. And so a lot of people will extract those from the plant too for the medicinal part of it. So anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. Not only that, but it gives it a nice scent, and it also gives it a very, very nice flavor. And because of that, you see those a lot included in many of the CBD products. So again, full spectrum does contain terpenes. Broad spectrum also contains terpenes, but CBD isolates usually do not. But always ask, always check. So awesome! We finally get to the fun stuff, the chemistry, the biology, the pharmacokinetics. And I know this is probably the part where you guys are going to tune out, but that's okay. I'll keep it very short, and I won't go through everything that I want to go through with you guys, but I'll just go through some specifics, some little specifics that are important. The studies are all over the place when it comes to absorption, and that is basically once you take the product, how much of it actually is used. And so they're all over the place, so I'm not going to really go into depth with that because those numbers, like I said, are all over the place. But overall, the best way to get CBD in your body is through your lungs, because there's a lot of capillaries in your lungs. So vaping and smoking it, of course, as a healthcare provider, I don't recommend doing either of those, because anything that goes into your lungs that is not oxygen is not good for you, even if it's CBD. Yes, even if it's CBD. So don't smoke, don't vape. So really what I'm going to use is what is most common when it comes to absorption. Mostly, like I said, through your lungs is the fastest and easiest way and most efficient way. But then you can also do sublingual, which means basically you put the product, or whether it's a tablet or an oil, under your tongue, and it absorbs through the glands under your tongue. There's also topical, but topical really doesn't have a lot of absorption. It's only for local effect. You can also ingest it, which means you can drink it. The issue with that is that it goes through your stomach, and a lot of it's broken down with your enzymes, and therefore not a lot of it is absorbed, but there's still good absorption. It's just not as good as inhalation and sublingual. So again, because sublingual oils are the most commonly used, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on those. And what I'm going to go over is really what I, as a pharmacist, go over with my patients, how I tell them how to use it. So first thing you want to do is always make sure you shake that little bottle. Shake it really, 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 really well. And then you want to make sure that you place 0.5 milliliters under your tongue twice a day. Now, a lot of places will tell you to do a whole dropper once a day or twice a day. We don't recommend that, at least not in my pharmacy, because of the fact that 1 milliliter under your tongue, or 1 dropper under your tongue, is way too much to be under your tongue. You're going to end up swallowing most of that. And so, yes, even though it's still going to go into your stomach and some of it will still be absorbed, you want it to stay on your tongue as long as possible. And because of that, I recommend doing smaller amounts. So 0.5 milliliters, I think it's good. 0.5 in the morning, 0.5 in the evening. That's going to give you best absorption. These bottles are 30 ml bottles, so again, make sure you shake it really well. Now, once it's under your tongue, you want to make sure that you keep it there undisturbed. So we recommend doing at least 30 seconds, but of course, the longer, the better. Most of the time, I tell my patients, take it as you're driving to work, and take it as you're driving from work. So, that way it's undisturbed. You don't want to drink anything. You don't want to eat anything. Try not to swallow as long as possible. So keep it there for 30 seconds at least, but ideally as long as you can. So most importantly, you want to make sure that this stuff is safe. And so you need to make sure that you know where you're buying it from, whether or not if it's a legitimate place. And so the best way to find out is to ask a lot of questions. Asking questions is probably the most important thing, because the more questions you ask, you can kind of tell whether or not this person knows what they're talking about. And so ask a lot of questions. Also ask for certificates of analysis. And these are just basically sheets of paper that tell you exactly everything that this product was tested for. So when you see the certificate of analysis, make sure that you also check to make sure that they tested for everything. Some places only test for potency and little minor things here and there. That's good, but the more tests that they do, the better, because you know you have a better product, or safer, cleaner product. And so, like for example, our bottles actually have a little barcode on them that tell you exactly what's inside that specific bottle. Some places will only do one test on one bottle and then sell 1,000 bottles based off on the test of that one bottle. So what's unique about our bottle says, and we'll put the little bottle right here if you can zoom into it. It has a little barcode on the side that you can actually take a picture of it. It'll take you directly to the site where all of our clinical analysis are. And not only that, but all of our little bottles have a serial number on them, basically that will bring up specific tests for that specific bottle. Again, a lot of people will do one test and then they'll say that all of their bottles are good, when in fact some of them might not. And so make sure that you look for that. Make sure that it has a barcode on there. Make sure that it has a lot number or serial number. Make sure you ask a lot of questions, and make sure you ask for certificates of analysis. If you're interested in buying CBD, come by the store, give us a call. We can answer mostly all the questions you have, or at least as many questions as you have. And we do ship all over Texas, so if you are not locally here, we can ship out to you. There's also an affiliate link on the description of a company that we do recommend buying from. They are an amazing company. They do testing for almost all of their products just as much as we do. And so I really do recommend that company. Give them a shout out down there. There will be a link in the description. We do get partial credit for anything that is bought through their website. So that's another way of supporting the channel. So give it a try. Okay, so this video actually is going longer than I thought it would be, so we're actually going to end it here and now, but stay tuned. There will be another part to this video. I will talk way more stuff about like all the other different parts of the plants, and you know, just so much stuff. There's just so much information to cover in one video, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at there. But make sure you leave me your comments on the bottom. Ask me as many questions that you want. I will address those questions in further videos. Like the channel, subscribe if you can. Please share guys, as much as you can. This is very, very new to us, but we do want to make sure that we get as much information out there for everybody. And so please share, subscribe, like the channel, and again, stay tuned for the next video.